Hey students, welcome to your social science history class. In the last class, we were studying about the Anglo-Mysore Wars, the four Anglo-Mysore Wars, and we also studied about the Dundia Wag. Now let us proceed to the next topic. Can you recognize who is she? Yeah, she is Kittur Rani Chennamma. Isn't it? Kittur Rani Chennamma. Now let us know about it. Kittur Rani Chennamma was the Indian queen of Kittur, a princely state in present day Karnataka. She led an armed rebellion against the British East India Company in 1824 in defiance of the doctrine of lapse in an attempt to maintain the Indian control over the region, but was defeated and died imprisoned. One of the first female ruler to rebel against the British rule. She has become a folk hero in Karnataka and the symbol of independence movement in India. Now let us move on to the rebellion against the British life. Chennamma's husband died in 1824, leaving her with a son and a state of full volatility. This was followed by her son's death in 1824. Rani Chennamma was left with the state of Kitturu and an uphill task to save it from the British. Following the death of her husband and son, Rani Chennamma adopted Shivalingappa in the year 1824 and made him the heir to the throne. This edict the East India Company, who ordered Shivalingappa's explosion on the pretext of the doctrine of lapse and introduced by Lord Dalhousie, the then Governor General, to annex the independent Indian states in 1848. The doctrine was based on the idea that in case the ruler of an independent state died childless, the right of ruling the state reverted or lapsed to the sovereign. The state of Kittur came under the administration of Dharwad collector in charge of Saint John Thackeray, of which Mr. Chaplin was the commissioner, both of whom did not recognize the new ruler and regent and notified Kitturu to accept the British regime. Rani Chennamma, she sent a letter to the Mountstuart Elphinstone, Lieutenant Governor of the Bombay Presidency, pleading her cause, but the request was turned down and war broke out. The British tried to confiscate the treasure and jewels of Kitturu, valued at around 1.5 million rupees. They attacked with a force of 20,797 men and 437 guns, and mainly from the 3rd Troop of Madras Native Horse Artillery. In the first round of war during October 1824, British forces lost heavily and Saint John Thackeray, collector and political agent, was killed in the war. Amatur Balappa, a lieutenant of Chennamma, was mainly responsible for his killing and losses to the British forces. Two British officers, Sir Walter Elliot and Mr. Stephenson, were also taken as hostages. Rani Chennamma released them with an understanding with Chaplin that the war could be terminated, but Chaplin continued the war with more forces. During the second assault, the sub-collector of Solapur, Munro, the nephew of Thomas Munro, was killed. Rani Chennamma fought fiercely with the aid of her deputy Sangoli Rayana, but was ultimately captured and imprisoned at Bailahongallu Fort, where she died on 2nd February 1829. Chennamma was also helped by her uh, henchman Gurusiddhappa in the war against the British. Sangolli Rayana continued the guerrilla war to 1829 in vain until his capture. He wanted to install the adopted boy Shivalingappa as the ruler of Kittur, but Sangolli Rayana was caught and hanged. Shivalingappa was arrested by the British, and Chennamma's legacy and the first victory are still commemorated in Kitturu during the Kitturu Utsava held on from 22nd to 24th October annually. And also, even she is remained an idle person even still today. Can you recognize him? Yeah, he is Krantivir Sangolli Rayana. Now let us study about Sangolli Rayana children. Sangolli Rayana was an Indian military Sainik, Shet Sanadi, and a warrior in the Kitturu princely state of the Karnataka. He was the Shet Sanadi of the kingdom of Kittur, ruled by at the time by Rani Chennamma, and fought the British East India Company till his death. His life was a subject of the 2012 Kannada film Sangolli Rayana. Sangolli Rayana, the 18th century warrior and freedom fighter on the Kuruba Dangar community. Sangolli Rayana participated in 1824 rebellion and was arrested by the British, who released him later. He continued to fight the British and wanted to install the adopted son King Mallasarja and Rani Chennamma, namely Shivalingappa, as the ruler of Kittur. He mobilized the local people and started a guerrilla type war against the British. He and his guerrilla army moved from place to place, burnt government offices, waylaid the British troops, and plundered the treasuries. Most of his land was confiscated, and what remained of it was heavily taxed. He taxed the landlords and built up an army from the masses. The British troop could not defeat him in an open battle. Hence, by treachery, he was caught in April 1813 and tried by the British and sentenced to death. Shivalingappa, the boy who was supposed to be the new ruler, was also arrested by the British. Rayana was executed by hanging from a banyan tree from 4 kilometers from Nandgand in Belgavi district on 26 January 1831. Rayana also helped the Jagavira, a Siddhi warrior, in his revolt against the British in 1829-30. Rayana was buried near the Nandagad legend. Legend says that the close associate of Sangolli, Bichugatti Channabasappa of Rayana, planted a banyan sapling on his grave. The tree is grown and stands to this day. An Ashoka Stamba was installed near a tree. A small temple in the name of Sangolli Rayana was constructed in Sangolli village, in which stands a statue of Rayana planked by 2 wooden weights used for body building. 2 wooden weights are original. Those were used by Rayana himself for body building. A recently established Krantivir Sangolli Rayana Authority, its work progress of Krantivir Sangolli Rayana Sainik School, Shurya Bhumi, Krantivir Sangolli Rayana Rock Garden, and in Veerabhumi, Krantivir Sangolli Museum. All these have been there in the name of Sangolli Rayana. And apart from this, children, Apart from this, uh, the ballad song, the Giya Giya, that song of a heroic folklore versus composed in North Karnataka, and several such songs are sung about Kitturu Chennamma, Sangolli Rayana, and other figures of pre-independence Karnataka. A life-size bronze statue of Sangolli Rayana riding a horse with an open sword in the right hand was installed near railway station of Bengaluru. The main railway station of Bengaluru city has been renamed as Kranti Veer Sangolli Rayana Station in 2015. However, the station officially renamed the notified as Krantivir Sangolli Rayana railway station on 3rd February 2016. These are all done in the memory of Sangolli Rayana. And in 2012, a film was produced on his life history. Was the subject of the another Kannada language motion picture Krantivir Sangolli Rayana, legendary warrior Sangolli Rayana, which was directed by Naganna and starring Darshan Tugdeep, Jayaprada and Nikita Tukral. So, see this movie, children, sung about Sangolli Rayana. Now, we will move on to the next topic, that is the rebellion of Amarasule. The district of Kodagu in present-day Karnataka comprises the area of former princely state of the same name. Now let us move on to the Amarasulia. This rebellion of Amarasulia is basically, it is a farmers' rebellion. This rebellion should be understood in the in the backdrop of the political situation, where the situations which were prevalent in the coastal Karnataka and Kodagu regions during the year of 1837 and 1835 and 1837. The British, they dethroned the rulers of Kodagu, Chikkaveera Rajendra of Haleri dynasty in 1834. He was later transferred to Velluru through Bangalore and later to Kashi. This incident created political instability in Kodagu. Swami Aparampara Kalyana Swami and Basappa organized a rebellion against this. All the three declared that they are a part of the Haleri dynasty that ruled Kodagu. Swami Aparampara assumed the leadership of the rebellion. He was captured in 1834 and shifted to Bengaluru. Similarly, Kalyana Swami was captured in 1837 and was placed in Mysuru prison. The people of Lower Kodagu continued the rebellion after the capture of Kalyana Swami. Sulya, Bellare and Putturu, the major places of Kannada region, all these were the part of the Amarasulya. One of the most important interesting thing here that Puttabasappa was a farmer, and that a farmer named Puttabasappa as Kalyana Swami. The Puttabasappa later himself, he presented himself as the Aparampara. This also notes that the fluid nature of the rebellion, and Puttabasappa took over the leadership of the rebellion. The rebellion started in the hilly region. Puttabasappa organized the rebels and calmed down the people. He declared that the tax on tobacco and salt will be withdrawn if the rebel government assumes power. The rich farmers, landlords and the local chieftains were assured of this move. Puttabasappa killed an Amaldar who was known for his brutality, further increased the popularity of Puttabasappa. The rebels marched towards Mangalore to capture it. The British were engaged in fortifying their fort in Mangalore. The rebels marched towards Mangalore through Panimangaluru and Bantwala. They looted the treasury and prison of Bantwala, and the British sought the army of Talakari, Kannuru, and Bombay to quell this uprising. On hearing this development, Puttabasappa and his associated fled towards Sulaya. The British captured them with the help of the people in Kodagu, and Puttabasappa, Lakshmappa, Bangarasa, Kadambari, Ramaya Gowda, and Gudemani Appaya were hanged till death children. Now we will move on to the next topic, the rebellions of Surapura and Koppal. Surapura is 50 kilometers away from Yadgir today. At an early age, Venkatappa Nayaka landed in the throne. Krishna Nayaka's brother Peddanna Nayaka opposed his assignation to the throne. This led to the internal problems. In the affairs of Surapura, the British intervened. In 1842, Medes Taylor was appointed there as their political agent and gained proxy power over Surapura. A famous and the last ruler from Surapura Nayaka dynasty was Venkatappa Nayaka, Venkatappa Nayaka had declined to accept the sovereignty of the British East India Company and fought a war against him. The British started interfering with the Surapura's internal matters and even had appointed their official named Medes Taylor as their political agent in the year 1842 so as to get proxy power in Surapura. The Taylor was a reformist. He developed the Surapura princely state, and Peddanna Nayaka was appointed as the Diwan of the state. The Taylor conducted the land survey of the kingdom. The revenue of the state increased due to the measures implemented by Taylor. He took measures to educate Venkatappa Nayaka properly, and he came to power in 1853. Now we will move on to the rebellion of Surapura. The British government were seeing all these developments which was taking place in Surapura, and in 1857 it came to the notice of the government also, and that the representatives of Nana Sahib were present in Surapura. This made the British suspicious of the king's intentions, and the British appointed an officer named Campbell to report on the way or the activities of the king. So he submitted the report to the residents of Hyderabad that the king is involved in misadministration. Venkatappa Nayaka was usually presented as the leader of 1857 revolution in Karnataka by the historians. The British army captured Surapura in 1858, and the war continued their confessions regarding the Venkatappa Nayaka's end. Now we will move on to the next topic, that is Veerapa of Koppal. Veerapa was from Koppal. He was a zamindar, rebelled against the British and occupied the fort of Koppal and other forts in the vicinity. Many farmers, zamindars, zamindars supported him after realizing his motives. Veerappa, who was a zamindar, rebelled against the British and occupied the fort of Koppal and other forts in the vicinity. Many farmers, zamindars, supported after realizing what was the motives of Veerappa. The British contacted the Nizam and employed their army to defeat Veerappa. He, who had lesser soldiers, died fighting the army of the British, and the British captured back the fort of Koppal, though the rebellion was short-lived one. Veerappa proved himself to be a good warrior. Now we will move on to the last part of the chapter, that is the rebellion of Vedas of Hulagali. The Hulagali is a very small village of Mudhol Taluk of Belgaum district. This was a part of Mudhol Principality. In 1857, the British banned the usage of weapons. So the Vedas who always kept guns as a part of their customs, and they were also good hunters. They rebelled against the British when they were asked to surrender their firearms. The Vedas of Manturu, Budani, Alagagundi and others joined the Hulagali Vedas. The British army entered the Hulagali village to suppress the rebellions. They suppressed the Vedas in an inhuman way, and all the rebels were hanged till the death. So with this, we finish up with the chapter the opposition or to the British rule in Karnataka. So in this lesson, let us recapture what all we learnt in this chapter. We learnt about the Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, and we also studied about the Anglo-Mysore Wars, all the 4 Anglo-Mysore Wars, and how the Mysuru came under the control of the British people. Then we studied about the Dondia War and the rebellion of Amarasule and also the Hulagali Vedas. Apart from that, we also studied about the famous Queen Rani Chennamma and Sangolli Rayana. So with this, we end the chapter. Thank you, children.